Listen to me very carefully. I know this is going to be controversial. Real estate agents are going to hate me. Banks are going to be upset. And anyone who's already bought a house in the last few years might feel personally attacked. But I don't care about making people comfortable. I care about telling you the truth about your money. Here's the reality. The housing market in the United States is broken. It's so broken that if you buy a house right now in most states, you're making a financially irrational decision. And I'm going to prove to you with math, with data, and with logic that nobody can argue with. Now, before I get into this, let me be clear about something. Real estate can be a great investment. I've made a fortune in real estate. The Dallas Mavericks arena, commercial properties, apartment complexes, I've owned them all. But timing matters, location matters, market conditions matter, and right now in most of the United States, the conditions are terrible for buyers. Let me show you exactly why. The first reason I would never buy a house right now is the interest rates. They're not just high, they're historically high compared to where we've been for the past 15 years. Think about this. For most of the past decade and a half, you could get a 30-year fixed mortgage for around 3% or 4%, sometimes even lower. That was extraordinary. That was free money. And if you didn't buy during that window, you missed the greatest opportunity in modern housing history. But now, mortgage rates are hovering around 7%, 8%, even 9% in some areas. Let me show you what this actually means in terms of your monthly payment. Let's say you're looking at a $400,000 house at 3.5176. At 7.5% interest, that same 0.5% interest, that same $400,000 house costs you $2,076 per month. That's a $1,000 difference every single month, 0.12,000 more per year, $360,000 more over 30 years. And here's what's brutal. You don't even get to enjoy the lower payment because the house prices are still elevated from the pandemic boom. So you're paying way more for the house and way more to finance it. It's a double whammy that's crushing buyers. Now, some people will tell you just wait for rates to come down. Okay, let's talk about that. Rates might come down eventually, but here's what nobody tells you. When rates come down, prices go up. It's basic economics. Lower rates increase buying power, which increases demand, which drives up prices. So if you're waiting for rates to drop before you buy, you're probably waiting for a price increase too. The people who bought at 3% in 2021, they got low rates and lower prices. That's the golden window. That window is closed. And if you buy now, you're locking in high rates and high prices for the foreseeable future. The second reason I'm not buying is the prices themselves. Housing prices have become completely disconnected from local incomes. Let me give you some numbers that are going to shock you. In many major metropolitan areas, the median home price is now 8 to 10 times the median household income. Historically, that ratio has been around 3 to 4 times. What does that mean? It means houses are twice as expensive relative to income than they should be based on historical norms. Let me use specific examples. In California, specifically cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, or San Diego, median home prices are well over $1 million. The median household income in California is around $80,000. That's a 12.5 to 1 ratio. You need to spend 50% or more of your gross income just to afford the median home. That's not sustainable. That's not normal. That's a bubble. In Florida, places like Miami, Tampa, and Orlando have seen prices explode over the past 4 years. Miami now has a price-to-income ratio of over 10. Phoenix, Arizona is similar. Austin, Texas hit ratios that were frankly absurd before starting to correct. Now, let me ask you a simple question. When prices are this disconnected from local incomes, who is actually buying these houses? The answer is interesting. It's a combination of remote workers from high-cost areas moving to lower-cost areas with cash offers, investors buying up properties for rentals, and foreign buyers looking for safe places to park their money. But here's what happens when those sources of demand dry up. Remote work policies are tightening. Companies are calling people back to offices. Investment returns are getting worse as rental yields compress. Foreign money is facing stronger dollar headwinds. When that demand disappears, what happens to prices? They correct. They correct hard. The third reason I'm staying out of the housing market is rental yields. This is the metric that actual real estate investors use to determine if a property makes sense. Rental yield is simple. It's your annual rental income divided by the property value. A good rental property should generate a yield of 6% to 8% to make sense as an investment. Why? Because you have maintenance costs, vacancy periods, property management fees, taxes, and insurance. All of that eats into your return. So a 7% gross yield might only be 4% or 5% net yield. Still decent, but not great. Here's the problem. In most of the United States right now, rental yields are around 3% to 4% gross. That means net yields of 1% to 2% if you're lucky. That's not an investment. That's a losing proposition. Let me illustrate this with an example. Let's say you buy a $500,000 house and it rents for $2,500 per month. That's $30,000 per year in gross rental income. That's a 6% gross yield. Not bad. But now subtract your expenses. Property taxes might be $6,000 per year, insurance another $2,000, maintenance and repairs, figure another $3,000. Property management, if you use it, another $3,000. Vacancy, let's say 1 month, that's $2,500. Total expenses, $16,500. Net income, $13,500. Net yield, 2.7%. Compare that to just putting your money in a high-yield savings account or a diversified stock portfolio. You can get 4% to 5% with zero effort, zero risk of a broken HVAC system, zero middle-of-the-night plumbing emergencies. Now, some people will say, but the property appreciates. Okay, let's talk about appreciation. Over the long term, housing appreciates at about 3% to 4% per year, roughly with inflation. But over the past few years, we've seen abnormal appreciation of 10%, 15%, 20% per year in some markets. That is not normal. That is not sustainable. And when it reverses, you're not just not appreciating, you're depreciating. The math on most rental properties right now does not work. And that's why smart money, the institutional investors, the people who buy thousands of houses at a time, they're not buying, they're selling. They're dumping properties onto the market because they know the math is broken. The fourth reason I'm cautious about buying is the massive increase in new home construction. During the pandemic and the years following, home builders responded to high prices and low inventory by building like crazy. Housing starts hit levels we haven't seen in decades. And now, all of those new homes are hitting the market simultaneously. When supply increases dramatically while demand is weakening, prices have to fall. It's basic supply and demand. You cannot escape it. Let me give you the numbers. Housing starts in 2022 and 2023 were running at an annual rate of over 1.4 million units. That's near cycle highs. Meanwhile, existing home sales have collapsed because nobody wants to give up their 3% mortgage rate to buy at current prices and rates. So we have a situation where new supply is flooding the market while existing supply is artificially constrained by homeowners who won't sell. Eventually, that constraint breaks. Homeowners get desperate. They realize they can't hold on to a house they can't afford or don't want anymore. And when they start selling in volume, the market is going to be flooded. This is already happening in markets like Austin, Phoenix, and parts of Florida. Price reductions are becoming common. Days on market are increasing. Price cuts that would have been unthinkable a year ago are now standard. The builders are also getting desperate. They're offering incentives, they're cutting prices, they're doing whatever they can to move inventory because carrying unsold homes costs money. And when builders get desperate, that's good for buyers, but it also signals that prices have more room to fall. The fifth reason I'm staying out of the housing market is the overall economic uncertainty. We're in an unusual economic period. Inflation has come down from its peaks, but remains above the Fed's 2% target. Interest rates are high and likely to stay high for some time. The Fed has made it clear they're not going to cut rates aggressively until they see sustained inflation improvement. Meanwhile, the yield curve has been inverted for a long time, which has historically been a reliable predictor of recession. I'm not saying a recession is guaranteed, but the risk is elevated. What happens to housing during a recession? Prices fall, unemployment rises, people lose their homes, foreclosures increase. It's not pretty. Now maybe we avoid a recession, maybe we get a soft landing. But why would you take that risk when the math doesn't even work in good times? If you can't make money on a house in a growing economy, how are you going to make money in a recession? I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm trying to be realistic. Your financial future is at stake. You need to make decisions based on probabilities, not hopes. And the probability of the housing market delivering great returns in the next few years is not in your favor. The sixth reason I'm not buying is that there are better alternatives available. Let me ask you a question. Why do you want to buy a house? Is it because it's a good investment? Well, we've established that the math doesn't work right now. Is it because you want stability? That's valid, but renting can be stable too if you sign a longer lease. Is it because you want to customize a place to live? That's hard to argue with, but at what cost? Here are the alternatives you should be considering instead. High-yield savings accounts. You can get 4% to 5% risk-free right now. That's better than your mortgage rate might be. And you can access your money whenever you need it. Treasury bonds. You can get 5% on short-term treasuries, same as savings accounts, but with slightly different tax treatment. Extremely safe, extremely liquid, diversified index funds. Over the long term, the stock market has outperformed real estate, and you can get instant diversification with an index fund. No maintenance, no repairs, no tenants calling you at 2 a.m. Wait for better conditions. If you can stay flexible with your living situation, waiting a year or two might save you significant money. Prices will come down. Rates will come down. Not to 2021 levels, but to something more reasonable. And when they do, you'll be glad you waited. I know buying a house feels like the American dream. I know everyone tells you that you need to own, but the people telling you that often have a financial incentive for you to believe that. Real estate agents make money when you buy. Lenders make money when you borrow. Home builders make money when you purchase. I'm not making money if you buy or if you rent. I just want you to make the best decision for your financial future. And based on the current numbers, renting and investing, the difference is the smarter play in most markets. The seventh reason I'm not buying is the hidden costs that nobody tells you about until you're stuck with them. Everyone talks about the down payment, they talk about the mortgage, but they don't talk about the $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in hidden costs that disappear the moment you close on a house. Closing costs. These typically run 2% to 5% of the purchase price. On a $400,000 house, that's $8,000 to $20,000 in origination fees, appraisal fees, title insurance, recording fees, and a dozen other charges that exist purely to separate you from your money. Immediate repairs. The moment you move in, things break. The inspection missed something. The previous owner covered up problems. The HVAC is older than you thought. Budget $5,000 to $10,000 for the first year of unexpected repairs. Furniture and updates. Buying a house is empty. You need furniture for every room. You want to paint, maybe change some fixtures, maybe update the kitchen. That's another $10,000 to $50,000 depending on the condition of the place. Maintenance ongoing. Roofs need replacement every 15 to 25 years. HVAC systems last 15 to 20 years. Water heaters 10 to 15 years. Each of those is $5,000 to $15,000, and you're going to have to replace them eventually whether you want to or not. Property taxes. These never go down, they only go up. And in many states, they're a massive ongoing expense that never ends. Insurance. Homeowners insurance has exploded in cost, especially in states prone to natural disasters. Florida, California, Texas, Louisiana, these states have seen insurance premiums double or triple in recent years. HOA fees. If you buy in a planned community, you're paying HOA fees. These are usually $200 to $500 per month, and they always go up, never down. All of these costs add up, and they're not optional. You have to pay them whether you want to or not. When you rent, your landlord pays all of this. Your rent might go up, but at least it goes up in manageable increments and you can move if it gets too expensive. Section 8, the opportunity cost calculation. The opportunity calculation. The eighth reason I'm not buying is the opportunity cost. This is probably the most important point in this entire video, so pay attention. Opportunity cost is what you give up by choosing one option over another. When you buy a house, you're not just spending money on the house. You're spending money that could have been invested elsewhere. Let me give you a concrete example. Suppose you have $100,000 for a down payment plus another $50,000 in closing costs, repairs, and furniture. That's $150,000 tied up in your house. Now, what if you took that $150,000 and invested it in a diversified portfolio? The stock market has returned about $10,000, $10,500 per year in passive income or compound growth. Your house might appreciate at 3% per year in a normal market. On a $400,000 house, that's $12,000 to $16,000 per year in appreciation. But you also have $15,000 to $20,000 per year in expenses we discussed earlier. So your net might be close to zero or even negative compared to the stock market investment. But here's where it gets really interesting. The $150,000 you have tied up in your house is illiquid. You can't access it easily. If an amazing investment opportunity comes along, you can take the money out of your house and invest in it. You have to sell the house, which takes months and costs thousands in transaction costs. Meanwhile, if your $150,000 is in the stock market, you can sell in minutes. You can take advantage of opportunities. You can pivot your strategy. You have flexibility, and flexibility has value. Option value has value. Option value has value. Having your money accessible is worth something. Being able to move for a better job, a better city, a better life that has value. I'm not saying real estate is bad. I'm saying right now in this specific moment, the opportunity cost of buying a house is too high. The alternatives are too good to pass up. Now, I want to address something important. This video is about why I wouldn't buy a house right now in most US states. There are exceptions. Some states and some cities still make sense for buyers. Let me walk through the variations. States to avoid right now. California is completely out of reach for most buyers. Prices are insane, rates are high, and the tax burden is significant. It's a beautiful place to live, but a terrible place to buy investment property. Florida has seen massive price appreciation and is now facing significant corrections in many markets. Insurance costs are exploding. The market is saturated with new construction. I'd stay away for now. Texas looked attractive during the migration boom, but prices got ahead of themselves. Cities like Austin has seen significant price reductions. Property taxes are brutal. It's better to rent than buy in most Texas metros right now. Arizona had a similar trajectory to Florida and Texas. The Phoenix market is softening. New construction is everywhere. Prices have room to fall. Nevada, particularly Las Vegas, is in the same boat. Tourism-dependent economy, lots of new development, prices that got ahead of themselves. States that might make sense. Midwest states like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin still have affordable prices. Detroit has actually seen some recovery. These markets aren't exciting, but the math works better. Some parts of the Northeast are still reasonable, particularly outside of the major metro areas. Cities like Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland offer affordable housing with decent economic foundations. Rural areas in general can make sense if you find the right property, but you have to be very careful about liquidity and job markets. The key point is this: you cannot apply a blanket statement to the entire United States. Every market is different. You need to do the math for your specific situation in your specific market. But for the vast majority of Americans in the vast majority of markets, buying a house right now does not make financial sense. Let me give you the bottom line here because I want to make sure this is absolutely clear. I'm not saying you should never buy a house. Real estate can be part of a solid wealth building strategy. I've made my fortune in real estate. I'm not anti-homeownership. What I am saying is that timing matters. Market conditions matter. And right now in most of the United States, the conditions are unfavorable for buyers. High interest rates, high prices, low rental yields, rising supply, economic uncertainty, better alternatives, and massive hidden costs all point to one conclusion. Renting and investing the difference is the smarter play for most people right now. If you already own a house and you love it, keep it. If you're going to be in a location for 10 or more years and you find a deal that makes sense, maybe it's worth considering. But for the average person in the average market, waiting is the right play. The housing market will correct. It always does. Prices will come down, rates will come down, and when they do, you'll be glad you waited. I've built companies, I've invested in real estate, I've made money and lost money. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the best investment you can make right now is patience. Don't let fear drive you into a bad decision. Don't let social pressure make you buy something you can't afford. Don't let real estate agents convince you that the market is going to keep going up when all evidence points to a correction. The smart money is waiting. The smart money is renting. The smart money is renting. The smart money is accumulating cash and position for when the opportunity is right. Be the smart money. Now, if this video gave you a different perspective on the housing market, I need you to smash that like button. Then head to the comments and tell me, are you planning to buy a house this year? Are you waiting? What's your market like where you live? Let me know because I read these comments and I want to hear about your experiences. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Subscribe right now and hit that bell so you never miss a video. Better yet, become a member of this channel. We're building a community of people who think critically about their money instead of following the crowd. I'll see you in the next video.